What is up, YouTube? Dottz Gaming here, and welcome to my Stamina Nightblade PvP build for the Elder Scrolls Online. So this is the PvP build that I use on my Stamina Nightblade. It works in both CP and no CP PvP. I was able to perform well in both instances without really changing much of anything about the build. It's really strong. It is just very good all-around build. I very much enjoy it, and there is a piece of the build that you can kind of do some customizability on to kind of change up how it plays a little bit if the style that I'm going for is not entirely your own. Now, as I'm going to say with all PvP builds, especially in the Elder Scrolls Online, they are very personal. Just because this works for me and I enjoy it, if you think the build is bad, that might not be correct. It might just be this build wouldn't work for you. This wouldn't be your type of play style. This is what works for me. This is what I liked and what I have found great success with. I've basically been using this build since the second I started PvPing on my Stamblade. I have tweaked some things over time, and now we have the final product, but the overall core of the build was what I started with, and it's pretty much stood the test of time through all of my playing, and it's definitely the permanent build that I'm going to be playing on this character. So moving right into the build, we will start with gear. So for our monster helmet, we are running 2 pieces of Selines. I very much enjoy Selines on the Stamblade still, even though the animation is a bit shorter, it takes a bit longer to go off than it used to. I still think it's very good. It still deals a lot of damage. For those of you who do not know what it does, it gives you a line of max stam, and when you deal direct melee damage, you have a 15% chance to call on a primal spirit that mauls the closest enemy in front of you after 1.3 seconds for 16.5k physical damage, and this can occur every 4 seconds. So I love this set. I love using an offensive monster set on my Stamblade in PvP. I tried Bloodspawn, and Bloodspawn is very good if you want a more defensive monster set or a monster set that helps give you more ultimate. Bloodspawn is definitely my other recommendation, but I personally preferred the playstyle of having Selines on the build and being way more offensive with that, and it's just what I personally enjoyed. I chose Selines over something like Velodreth because, yes, Velodreth will give you more damage via the one line of weapon damage, but I preferred the max stam, being that our stam pool is not the world's highest stam pool. I preferred to have that line of max stam over some more weapon damage because I already have plenty of weapon damage. I'd rather kind of shore up a little bit of a lesser area and boost up my stam a little bit more. Another alternate that you can do if you want to do something else to defend it is you could also do 2 pieces of Troll King, which gives you a line of healing done, and then when you heal a friendly target, including yourself, if they're below 50% health, your health recovery is increased by almost 1,500 for 10 seconds. So that will really help you defensively. But through my testing and how I play, I prefer using Selines. Our 5 pieces on the body is Eternal Hunt. I love this set so much. It gives you 2 lines of stam recovery, a line of max stam, and then when you roll dodge, you leave behind a rune that detonates when enemies come close, dealing almost 10k poison damage and immobilizing them for a second and a half. This is one of my favorite sets. It's a real nuisance. It makes you very hard to chase, and I really enjoy it. I have done some research, though, and I do believe that a better set to use in terms of, min-maxing your stats and everything, I believe Bone Pirate would technically be better for the 5 pieces on the body, but I just prefer Eternal Hunt. It's crafted. I don't have to farm. I like the 5 piece. I just genuinely enjoy how Eternal Hunt plays on the build more than I would Bone Pirate, and plus with the way that I wanted to organize my stats, Eternal Hunt made a little bit more sense because I'm not using a drink buff, I'm using a food buff. So I personally preferred Eternal Hunt, but if you want to try to min-max the stats a little bit more, I believe Bone Pirate would technically need to go here. In terms of our jewelry, I am running 3 pieces of agility. I needed a 3-piece jewelry set somewhere because I'm running 2 1-pieces for my weapons, so agility fit the bill just nice. More max stam, more weapon damage, all good stuff. In terms of our traits on the body, before I get into weapons, the traits on the body, I run, I think I run 3 impenetrable and 4 well-fitted. So, 4 impenetrable and 3 well-fitted is what I run for my traits. That's what I enjoy. You can, I would say, either go 3 well-fitted and 4 impen, or vice versa. Up to you. I prefer to have the extra impen. I only need 3 pieces of well-fitted. And then the jewelry is all weapon damage. The gear is all weapon damage enchant. The gear is all stamina enchant, except for my chest. I have a prismatic on the chest to help mainly buff up the magica pool a little bit more is the main reason I stuck this on there. Not mandatory, but I like having the one prismatic on the chest piece. Now, the thing that I'm going to get the most questions about, the weapons. We have the Asylum Greatsword. The Asylum Greatsword, let me actually move this thing out of the way because I believe that this little chat overlay is going to block it. So, the Asylum Greatsword. The Asylum Greatsword is absolutely amazing, and it's really not that hard to get. When you deal damage with Reverse Slash, you generate up to 14 ultimate based on how much execute bonus damage is dealt. As you can tell, Reverse Slash is going to be the execute for the build, but this weapon is so good. And guys, I know some of you might be thinking, oh my god, the Asylum Greatsword, I'm never going to get that. If you have Clockwork City, normal Asylum Sanctorium is really not that hard. If you get a decent group to do it, you will be able to clear it with relative ease. And I know groups that do it over and over and over and over. And you could just ask somebody, can I have, if anyone gets an Asylum 2H, it doesn't matter what type, can I get it? And you'll be in a really good place. I personally prefer Greatsword. I like the extra weapon damage that comes from the sword. It helps me offensively and defensively. I know people who like Maul. I know people who like Axe. I don't really think there's a one-size-fits-all answer for your weapon type here in your front bar, but I personally prefer Greatsword just due to the fact that it has offensive and defensive capabilities. And then I am also running it Nirnhoned, as you can tell, and then I'm running double dot poisons on my front bar. Now, the back bar is where we're going to have a little bit of... we might have some issues because the back bar is a little bit hard to get. I am running the Master's Bow on my back bar. I am running an infused Master's Bow with weapon enchant. Basically, it increases my weapon damage by 301 against targets inflicted by poison injection. So whenever I have poison injection running on someone, I'm just going to get 300 more weapon damage. This is really good. I know VDSA is hard, though. I understand it's hard. If you do not have the Master's Bow, you can just use any old gold bow, and I will go over some ability replacements that you can use if you do not have the Master's Bow, or you can just continue to use poison injection even if you don't have this. Just keep in mind your weapon damage will be a little bit lower. But you don't, I would prioritize the Greatsword over the bow. The bow is very good, don't get me wrong, that extra weapon damage is great, but the Asylum Greatsword I think would be an easier priority to get just because it's easier to obtain, and it's just, it's so good. I love it. But if you can get the Master's Bow, it is a huge buff to your damage. It's just a huge buff to your damage. If you can get it, please try to get it. But if you can't, like I said, I will go over some alternatives in terms of abilities that you can use. So moving right into abilities, we are using Ambush. So Ambush is our gap closer. It gives us an Empower, and the target is briefly snared. I like this over Stampede. I know some people prefer Stampede. I prefer Ambush. I like the Empower. 20% additional damage on my next ability. Easily use this on Incap. You can really pull off some big damage. This is what I like. If you want to use Stampede or Crit Rush, be my guest. I like Ambush. Of course, the bread and butter spammable for the Nightblade is Surprise Attack, deals physical damage and grants Major Fracture. And then if you use Surprise Attack while sneaking or invisible, your opponent is stunned and set off balance. Very, very good ability. Gives you Major Fracture, so you do not need to invest as many points into penetration. And it's overall just a great ability. I was always jealous of it when I played Melee Magblade, but now that I'm on the Nightblade side of things, it feels so good to have it. We are also running Rally on our front bar. Rally is awesome. Rally gives us a really juicy heal, and it gives us our source of major brutality. So it gives us a hot, so we get healed every 2 seconds while it's active, and an additional 1750 when it expires, and the final heal is increased up to 564% in proportion to the length of time that Rally's been active. So if it's got 5 seconds left on your Rally, and you need a big heal in a pinch, you can just reactivate it, and you will get a monster heal. Definitely worth taking. This is one of the reasons why I play a 2H, and why I think 2H is better than dual wield. You have superior healing, and you are going to be able to 1vx easier due to that fact. And then another reason that I love the 2H is babam for Executioner. So much better than Killer's Blade, simply due to the fact that it starts scaling at 50%. So you spin, dealing damage, and it deals up to 350% more damage to enemies with less than 50% health. And a great analogy that I saw for Killer's Blade versus Executioner is that Executioner is going to deal really good damage at 26%, and Killer's Blade is going to deal 0 damage at 26%. So it's really something to consider when you're deciding between Killer's Blade and Executioner. Killer's Blade is still good. It don't get me wrong, Killer's Blade is good, but I think Executioner overall is a bit better. Deals a lot of damage, and like I said, it will work at 26% health, while Killer's Blade will not. So it is just something to consider and keep in the back of your mind. And because we are running the Asylum Greatsword, it just grants us so much ultimate, so we can pop off as many incapacitating strikes as we want. And this is our ultimate. It only costs 70 ult, which you can see why ultimate regen through Executioner is going to be so good for firing off as many of these as possible. It gives us disease damage, a stun, increases our damage against the target by 20% for 6 seconds, and puts on Major Defile. This ability is awesome. Being able to use this a lot is a huge thing for your damage and where a lot of your damage is going to be coming from. And then we also have Mass Hysteria on our front bar. Mass Hysteria is basically your secondary CC. In-cap's going to be your main primary CC, but Mass Hysteria is going to be used for if you have either multiple targets on you that you need to shake off, or if you want to CC somebody and you do not have in-cap up and ready to go, or if you need to drop someone's block in order to actually land your in-cap, that is something else you could do as well. Just use Mass Hysteria, drop the block, and pop him with an in-cap. So it's just a really good thing to have on your front bar for some more utility. Now on the back bar, the bow bar, I am running Relentless Focus. I know some people like Shade here. I personally prefer running Relentless Focus. If you want to run Shade, go ahead and run Shade. I've tested with Shade, I tested with Relentless Focus, and I prefer the way Relentless Focus plays. It gives you so many buffs. You get Minor Berserk and Minor Endurance, which gives you 8% more damage right off the bat, and 10% more stam recovery. And then you also get Assassin's Scourge after 5 light or heavy attacks, and you can now animation cancel the Spectral Bow, which will deal a lot of disease damage, and it is much more fluid to fit into your rotation and into your build. So I really like Relentless. Definitely consider giving it a try, but if you do not like this, you can very easily put in Shade. For those of you who do not know, it gives minor maim, deals some minor dot damage, and you can teleport to it. So it gives you some good mobility. But I really prefer how the build plays without it and how it plays with Relentless, but that's just me. That is what I like. We have Poison Injection due to using the Master's Bow. It deals poison damage and puts up a poison dot over 10 seconds, and then the damage over time deals up to 260% more damage to enemies under 50% health. So as you can see, we are dealing a lot of damage to enemies under 50% health between Poison Injection and Executioner. So we are going to be able to kill stuff very, very, very easily. Our main defensive ability is Shuffle. Shroud yourself in a mist to gain major evasion, increasing your dodge chance by 15% for 23 seconds. You want to maintain this at all times or you're going to get crap done. It is such a strong defensive ability. It also gives us immunity to stare and immobilizations for 0.5 seconds and for each piece of medium armor worn. And I just realized I forgot to cover my armor weights. I am running 5 pieces of medium and 2 pieces of heavy. I am running 2 pieces of heavy gear. I want that extra health, some extra resistances to make me a little bit tankier. You can run 6-1, 6 medium, 1 heavy if you want, but I like the way that 5-2 plays personally, so I just wanted to touch on that now that we were talking about Shuffle. We also have Shadowy Disguise. Cloak, it's a staple. Not really a lot to talk about here. You need it for your stealth, and then your next attack after you come out of Shadowy Disguise will be a crit, so it's really, really good. Our other heal is Resolving Vigor, so you heals yourself and allies for about 13k health over 5 seconds. It heals you for 13k over 5 seconds, and you're my allies for about 10k over 5 seconds. So it's just a really good heal for you and your group. Combines very well with Rally, and just, good for keeping yourself alive. We also are using the Werewolf transformation on the back bar. Now you're probably wondering, Dottz, werewolves are bad. Why would I play a werewolf? You're not playing a werewolf. The only reason this ability here is because while it's slotted, you gain 15% additional stamina recovery. I didn't even bother morphing this because I never use it. I only use it for 15% stamina recovery on the back bar. More often than not, when you're on your back bar, you're either buffing up or playing defensively. And the reason I say that is because if you're not playing this way, you should be playing defensively on your back bar because you get Hasty Retreat. And you get Major Expedition for 5 seconds after you use a roll dodge. So you're able to dodge roll and then sprint really, really, really fast. So it's nice to have some extra recovery on that back bar while you are playing defensively, at least in my opinion. If you go, I don't want that, I want another ultimate to use, and I would recommend looking into Soul Tether. And using Soul Tether, gives you a siphoning ability on your back bar, so you're going to have some more magicka. You're going to get a little bit more healing. You could possibly use this as like a big AoE ultimate. I personally never really get ultimate past, my in-cap range. I always save it for in-cap. But if you want Soul Tether as something a little bit more defensive, it is something you can do. But I like having the werewolf transformation. For the 15% of the back bar, you suffer none of the negative effects that werewolves suffer just due to the fact that you're never in werewolf form. And it's just a free 15% recovery simply for having the ability slotted. So I think it's definitely worth it. Two other alternate abilities that I could also mention besides Shadow Image as an alternate. I'd say Relentless and Poison Injection are basically your kind of flex spots depending on how you personally want to play. These are what I like in these two slots. The other three that I could recommend is Shadow Image, of course, like I talked about. You could also use Leeching Strikes to give you some really superior stamina sustain. It heals your health. It keeps your stamina up, and then you restore a huge amount of stamina when the effect ends. I personally don't think you need it. You have plenty of sustain with Relentless Focus, and Relentless Focus really helps out your damage. But if you're really struggling with sustain for some reason, you can try Leeching Strikes, but I would really try learning. If you want something that's giving you more stam recovery, I'd really try Relentless Focus first, and then if you're still having trouble, try Leeching Strikes. Now, the other thing that I would recommend, and I know I'm going to immediately get hate for this, but I'm going to recommend it. If you want to have some range pressure on your back bars, you could use Lethal Arrow. Not as a spammable, but just as another tool in your kit. It deals a big amount of damage. It applies the poison status effect, and it applies Major Defile. So it's really not bad for, standing in the back, hitting Lethal Arrow, hitting Poison Injection, and then engaging. I personally do not like it. I felt it was really, really clunky to play with. It does have a cast time, a 1.1 second cast time. For me, I looked at what Lethal Arrow offered and how it played, and I really felt that other things offered more. I really like what Relentless Focus offers over Lethal Arrow. If you want to be able to really do some decent range damage, you could use Lethal Arrow if you really want to, but I think that Relentless Focus is really going to give you a bigger bang for your buck, but this is still a viable choice if it is something you want to try to incorporate into the build somewhere. Like I said, we are a werewolf. I went over that already. In terms of our Mundus, we are using the Serpent Mundus. I know some people who like to use the Warrior. I personally think, this is just my opinion, anything like once you begin to approach 2k stam recovery, you're beginning to get a little low, in my opinion. I like to have about 2,200 or above. That is what I found is the sweet spot for me, between 22 and 2,500. Any more than 25, I think you have way too much recovery. And then anything less than between 22 to 2k, depending on how you play, I think you don't have enough. So I'm sitting a little over 2,200, and that is what I found to be the sweet spot for me personally with how I play. So that is why I'm using the Serpent Mundus. Like I said, we are a vampire, not a vampire, we are a werewolf. And then in terms of buff food, we are using the Jewels of Misrule, which increases your stamina and magical recovery by 319 and your health by 3,511. And the reason that this is so important is because you need, in my opinion, to play Magblade, you are going to want at least 1,000, or Stamblade, you're going to want at least 1,000 magical recovery. That has just been what I found to be a really good amount of magical recovery for maintaining your magical pool while you are using Cloak. I think if you have less than 1,000, you begin to burn through your magical way too fast, and it can't catch up while you're cloaking. You could maybe go down to 900, but I personally think 1,000 or above is the sweet spot. I'm 1,024, so that has worked out pretty well. In terms of other stats, we have about 10.5k max magicka, 22k max health, about 32.5k max stam. We have almost 2,800 weapon damage on our front bar, unbuffed. And then on our back bar, we're sitting at about 2,241 weapon damage. We're sitting at about 13k resistances due to the fact that I am wearing 2 pieces of heavy, and we have about 2,300 crit resist. I never like to go below 2k. I believe 2 and 3k is your sweet spot for critical resistance, so that is indeed what I am running. In terms of race, I like Wood Elf. I think Wood Elf or Redguard is going to be your best bet just due to the amount of sustain that they give you. I know some people like and enjoy the Khajiit, but I personally think that for this build, you're going to want to play Redguard or Wood Elf. You're going to want a race that gives you a good bit of recovery. Like I said, in terms of poisons on my front bar, I am running double dot poisons. You could also run escapist poisons if I can find them. You could run escapist poisons if you want. That's another option. If you don't want to run poisons at all, I would recommend using a disease enchant on your front bar. It's really up to you. And then in terms of our potions, I am personally using tri-stat pots. It's what I'm using. It's what I like. If you do not want to use tri-stat pots, you could also use immovabilities. The ones that give you probably health and stamina would be the best. But I have been liking tri-stats and how tri-stats feel on the build. But that is just, that's a really personal choice when you can really do whatever you want there. Now, in terms of our champion points, I'm not going to open the CP window because, as you can see, I am only CP 671. Do not quite have cap yet. We're getting close, but we do not quite have cap. So instead, I'm going to display my projected CP for what I will be when I'm 720 from my website. If you do want to read this build and not have to rewatch it, if you want to buy some stuff, you could always go into the written version in the description below. But the CP for the build, guys, is we're going 11 points into Blessed, 37 points into Shattering Blows, 11 points into Physical Weapons Expert, and 72 points into Master at Arms. Now, you're probably wondering, Dottz, why are you doing that? The reason is because of Tactician. Right now, Stamina is really in a really good spot because they can utilize Tactician and they can utilize Exploiter at the same time for a stupid amount of damage. Now, when you're using Tactician, when you roll dodge or dodge an attack, when you roll dodge to dodge an attack, you set an enemy off balance, and then Exploiter increases your damage done against off balance targets by 10%. So you're just getting like a flat 10% damage increase for dodge rolling around, which is something that you do anyway. So that is why I personally think that this is, you want to have 120 points here and you want to have at least 75 here, which just due to the way that Stanblade's points are placed is really not that hard to do. Guys, remember, CP is very personal. Just keep that in mind. This is what I have just found to work for me. So like I said, 11 into Blessed, 37 Shattering Blows, 72 Master at Arms, 11 Physical Weapons Expert. We are going to have 43 into Mighty. This is eventually going to be 52 into Pierce Strikes and then 14 points into Piercing. Now, in terms of our green, we are looking at 40 points into Warlord. We are going to have 19 points into Sprinter. I'm still working on that. I have found 32 into Arcanist and 64 into Mooncalf to be the best balance of recoveries for me. Going up to 75, in my opinion, is a waste of points with how this build's recovery is. And then I have not needed more than 32 into Arcanist. I also like to run 19 into Befoul. It really helps boost the healing reduction of our incap, and if you use the disease enchant, really boosts up that healing reduction. So definitely something good to use. You can even pump this up a little more if you want. And then I go 66 points into Tumbling just due to the sheer amount that we dodge roll. And then in terms of our red CP, I like to go 56 into Ironclad, not 52. Most people are going to be putting 56 into Master at Arms, so you put 56 into Ironclad to combat the 56 into Master at Arms. 53 points into Resistant to, like I said, give us that critical resistance that we want. This is going to be 56 points into Thick Skinned, 32 into Hardy, and 32 into Elemental Defender. You could go up to a maximum of 37 in these. I would never go higher than that. I think once you go higher than 37 into these two, they begin to scale really bad, but that is just my opinion. And then I also do 11 points into Quick Recovery. Now, normally when I do these builds, I never put points into Blessed and Quick Recovery. They do not scale very well. I generally do not like them. But with how the Stanblade's points kind of fell and the way things kind of looked, I was able to squeeze 11 points out of my offense and my red tree defense and put those points into Blessed and Quick Recovery, and I do not think it really negatively impacted my offensive power at all. Like I said, a lot of times I do not like to go into these, but we're also a relatively squishy target, so I think the extra 6% healing will really go a long way in helping us stay alive while we are fighting. But that is pretty much it, guys, for the build. I'm going to go over some tips that I have written on my website in case you do not want to read it. These are just some tips. Obviously, you want to maintain your poison injection on the target that you are fighting in order to make sure that you're gaining the weapon damage from the Master's Bow. If you do not have poison injection rolling, you're missing out on free damage. Also, make sure you're maintaining Relentless Focus and make sure you're maintaining Shuffle and that you're maintaining Rally. All three of these buffs are very, very important for the success of the build. Not having any of these up is going to really cause you to lose out on a lot of damage, a lot of defensive power, and a lot of sustain. That is definitely something you need to, it's going to be a fine line learning to focus on, is being in combat, you know, dodging and avoiding what everyone else is trying to hit you with, and maintaining all three of these buffs. But they all have pretty long durations, so you should be able to get the hang of it relatively quickly. But obviously, maintain your buffs on yourself. Also, Stamina Nightblades mitigate their damage best through being hard to pin down. So use Dodge Roll, Eternal Hunt, and the Major Expedition you get from your bow to your advantage. You know, if at all possible, you know, I understand that sometimes you're going to need to dodge roll on your 2H bar, but if at all possible, try to save your dodge rolls for your bow bar, because you get that Major Expedition, and look how freaking fast you are. You're so fast. And because you're going to be putting points in a sprinter, your sprint's not going to be that expensive. So you're going to be able to pretty much just sprint around the battlefield. It's going to be really hard to pin down. And that's going to be a really good way to mitigate damage, is to just dodge roll, you know, sprint, cloak. You have Major Expedition up, so you're really able to just strafe around your opponent and be really hard to pin down, be really mobile, ambush back in. That's going to be the way you want to try to mitigate damage, just being really mobile and just generally a pain in the ass. You want to pick your opponents well and learn how to weave yourself in and out of combat, and like I said, via cloak. But as a Stamina Nightblade, one of the things that I learned is that picking your targets strategically is very important to your success, especially in a 1vx situation. Obviously, if you see somebody who's a low CP and you're in a CP campaign, focus that guy first. If you see a healer, he's also going to be a priority target. Squishy DPS are going to be priority targets. And then tanky or DPS and tanks are obviously going to be last priority. If you also see a Sork with low health, you could also try to go for him, because don't forget, we are going to hit Sorks decently hard. We do have 37 points into Shattering Blows, so that is definitely something that, you know, you could use to your advantage and really use to push your advantage on your opponents. Don't overcommit to a kill. You are a medium armor Stamina Nightblade. You are very squishy. And if you overcommit to a kill and your opponent survives, they can turn the fight on you. One of the things that I found out about the Stamblade very quickly is that you always want to be in control of the fight. You know, you're not like some other classes that it's super easy to, like, you know, there's a lot of other classes that can really turtle up and really play defensively and then, you know, kind of make up for their mistakes. But with a Stamblade, you're squishy. A lot of times if you make too big of a mistake, they're just going to punch you directly in the noggin and you're going to get killed. So don't overcommit. You know, keep maintaining your buffs even if someone's almost dead. Don't just slack and spam Executioner. Maintain your buffs, maintain Poison Injection, and then keep spamming Executioner, so you will optimize the amount of damage that Executioner is dealing, and you're going to get your in-cap back faster. And you'll also, you know, make it so that you're just not going to be killed in 15 seconds if they do manage to get an offensive window on you. Always be aware of your surroundings. You want to get your jump on the opponents, not the other way around. You are the master of stealth. You are the ganker. Okay, if you get ganked, it's not going to be a good time. It's not going to be a good time. If you do manage to get ganked, though, Vigor, Shuffle, Dodge Roll, and just run the hell away until you can rally, get into stealth, and kind of just, you know, recover from being ganked. Stamblades don't really handle being ganked well. We are the gankers, not the gankies. Also, use in-cap and clutch moments where you're on tankier targets. You can pretty much use in-cap almost willy-nilly on squishier targets. It's good as an execute. It's good to push an offensive advantage, especially on a CC. But on tankier targets, you really want to save it for key moments. In a moment where you're like, look, I have a lot of damage I could put on this guy. I have CC ready. I could put a lot of damage on this dude. You want to hit him with a fear, hit him with the yin cap, and then just go to town on him. And that healing reduced is going to help so much So much. Don't just fire off an in-cap willy-nilly against the tankier target. Save it for a clutch moment. Save it for when it's really going to mean a lot. And the Bethal passive is going to really be your friend and help you with that healing reduce, take down your target. People have asked me on my Stanblade Dottz, how do I burst on my Stanblade? Again, maintain your buffs. Maintain major fracture via your spammable surprise attack on your opponent. And there's a lot of different ways that you really can burst on your target. You can sneak with Shadowy Disguise into a heavy attack into in-cap, and the reason I'd say heavy attack into in-cap, especially if you really need resources, is because I believe it is the follow-up passive. When you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack, your next direct damage attack used within 7 seconds deals an additional 10% damage. So it's like a little mini empower. So that is something to consider as well, especially heavy attack out of stealth. It's going to deal a lot of damage. You also can obviously just use ambush and then use in-cap. You know, pretty self-explanatory. Ambush is going to empower the in-cap, and you can just ambush in 20% additional damage. Yeehaw. Like I said, you can also just drop their block with fear, in-cap. You know, you can block in-cap. You can dodge in-cap. So if you can get somebody feared, CC'd, hard CC'd, you can hit them with that in-cap, and it's pretty much going to be guaranteed to land. But that is basically it, guys. Do keep in mind, Stamina Nightblade is not the easiest class to get started on. I know a lot of people think, oh, Stamblades are just super face roll. They're not hard to kill with. You know, getting kills on a Stamina Nightblade is really not the world's hardest thing. They deal a lot of damage. What separates, in my opinion, a good Stamblade versus a bad Stamblade, or just an average Stamblade, is not only being able to kill your targets very quickly and very efficiently, but being able to survive while killing targets. Surviving on a medium armored Stanblade is not the world's easiest thing. You are very squishy, but you have a lot of mobility, and the class has a very high skill ceiling. I've seen some Stanblades do some pretty disgusting stuff, some pretty disgusting things. And it all comes from them understanding and knowing the class and being able to not only pop in and out of combat, just wreck someone's face and destroy them, and then get out really fast, and then come back in, do it again. And that's why I said I don't think it's really the art of killing that is going to make a good Stanblade from a bad Stanblade, but rather learning how to bob in and out of combat to stay alive and just kill this target, kill that target, kill this target, kill that target, and really be able to control the ebb and flow of battle. But like I said, that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions about my Stanblade, why I'm doing what I'm doing, any replacements, any tips, questions, whatever, please leave them in the comments below. I've been having a lot of fun on my Stanblade. This was my old Magblade. I turned him into a Wood Elf Stanblade after trying Stanblade for a couple hours and really enjoying it. It's a super fun class. It's really mobile, deals a shit ton of damage, and, you know, who doesn't love playing a sneak archer, am I right? But if you guys like this build video, if you guys like what I'm doing here on the Dottz Gaming YouTube channel, I'd appreciate if you left a like on the video, and then to always be updated on future builds, future streams, and future guides here on the channel, I'd appreciate if you hit that sub button, as well as hit the little bell next to it in order to keep notifications on. So thank you guys for watching. I'm Dottz Gaming, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.